Hi there! Thanks so much for tuning into this video. My name is Brandon, and in just a few moments, we'll be taking an up-close and personal look at what it's like to interview with Google virtually. What you see is two Googlers walk through a step-by-step framework that will be useful to any technical interview you have in the future. In this step-by-step framework, you'll see them first listen and ask clarifying questions, then establish a function signature and outline the brute force solution. Then they'll improve upon that solution, implement the solution, and finally, test the solution. Now, before we get into the actual interview, there's a couple things that I want to highlight. First, virtual interviews with Google are done over video conference through Google Meet. So you need a computer, a webcam, and a stable internet connection. It's not a bad idea to have a phone nearby in case there are connectivity issues and you need to call your interviewer or the recruiter. Now, speaking of the recruiter, I want you to remember that your recruiter is your advocate throughout the entire hiring process. So if there are any questions that you have leading up to your interview or you possibly need accommodations, don't hesitate to let them know. They are there to ensure you have the most successful interview possible. So that's all for me. Now I'm going to toss things over to two of our technical Googlers who will show us what it's like to interview virtually.
Hi there, my name is Kareem and I'm a software engineer on the Google Photos team. Today, I'll be playing the role of the interviewer.
Hello, my name is Marin, and I'm a software engineer on the Google Maps team. I will be today's interviewee.
The first couple of minutes of your interview may be spent on light introduction. For example, I like to talk about how long I've been at Google and what I've been working on. But we like to spend as much time as possible talking through the technical questions. So that's what we're going to do today. Let's jump in.
I've already indicated that I will be conducting this interview in Java, just like you will have indicated to your recruiter beforehand. Remember, there's no right language. Pick the one you're most comfortable with. Sometimes your interviewers will double check just to make sure you're both on the same page.
Are you ready for the question, Marin?
Yes.
Great. Let's hop into the Google Doc where I have already preloaded today's interview question and I've turned off auto capitalization. Remember, if you have questions, please feel free to ask. Write a function that takes a 7-digit telephone number and prints out all the possible words or combination of letters that can represent the given numbers, according to the letters associated with each key on the telephone keypad.
Okay. I'm going to read through this once or twice just to make sure that I understand the question. All right, so what is the possible input here? Can I assume that it's just digits, or should I also consider parentheses and dashes, any characters that that might be in a phone number?
For now, you can assume that it is well formed and it'll just be digits.
Okay. I see on the keypad that 1 has no characters and 0 has an underscore, which I think is a space. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. How about duplicates? Could there be duplicate digits in a phone number? That seems reasonable to me since phone numbers certainly can have more than one of the same number, but I just want to confirm that that's the case.
Sounds like a reasonable assumption to me.
Okay. Oh, last question. Do these need to be valid words that I'm forming? Or can it just, can the output be a gibberish string?
That's a great question. Let's assume for now that they don't need to be valid words. But once we come up with the solution, perhaps we can talk about strategies for adding that requirement.
Sounds good. Okay, I want to confirm my understanding with a few examples. So if the input were 2 characters, I'll do a couple of 2-character examples. So let's say one input could be 1, 2, and the other could be 8, 8. 1, 2, we've established that 1 has nothing associated with it. So I would expect the output to be a list that looks like A, B, and C. Whereas for 8, 8, I would expect something like TT, TU, TV, UT, UU, UV, BT, BU, BV. So this is my understanding of the question. Does this seem reasonable?
This seems good.
Great. Okay. Well, I'm going to have to represent the keypad in code. So I'm going to do that with a generate key codes method. And that would look something like codes. And then for, before I get into coding, here's the function signature for the method that will do all of the work to actually generate the output strings. So I would expect to return a list of strings, and we'll call it get combinations, and the input would just be a string phone number. So those are my 2 function signatures. All right. Well, if I know that there are only going to be 7 digits, I guess I could start with a bunch of nested loops. Something like for string first letter. Oh, you know what? I need to generate my key codes first. So that would look something like key codes. But I need to even create my key codes variable. So that will be a map, a string to a list of strings. So, you know, the digit 7 would return the list of the individual letters P, Q, R, and S. Codes. And then we'll initialize that. There we go. So now for generating my key codes, even though this doesn't have any letters associated with it, we still want to add it to the key code because it could very well be part of a phone number, and we want to avoid any exceptions there. And for everything else, this would be A, B, and C, and so on. All right, well, now that I have my key codes, I'm going to return to my initial approach. So assuming I know the length of the phone number, I can just start to create a bunch of nested loops. This approach seems pretty brute force to me, and I think I can come up with a better solution, but I'm going to start with this.
What pattern could you use to abstract this repetitive logic? Maybe something that would also help you generalize the solution for more than or less than 7 digits.
Well, I'm currently on the path of having tons and tons of nested loops. I guess for each of these nested loops, the logic at the center of all of the loops is the exact same. So this sounds a lot like it could have a recursive approach. I think I can come up with a recursive method here that can work for any length of phone number.
Great, let's go ahead.
All right. Let's see. Well, every recursive solution does need a base case to avoid getting stuck in any infinite loops. So, or infinite recursion. So let's see what our base case would be here. I guess it would be when phone number is of length 1, and then you just return all of the letters associated with whatever digit that is. What would that look like? Well, I'm going to start at the beginning of the string. And here is my base case. If the phone number length is 1, and I just want to return the letters associated with that number. Now, onto the recursive portion. I'm going to need to maintain a list of the results. So I will initialize that. And now what? Well, since I already handled the first character in the base case, let's see. I guess I'm just going to want to get combinations of the phone number. All right, let's see. And then in that, that's right. So I have my possible first characters. So we'll also go through that. And then we'll add all of those to the result. Yes. Then, and we need to return the result. All right.
This looks like a good start. Can you walk me through an example, maybe something like 4-6?
4-6. Okay. Four is, let's see, it's 4. G, H, and I. and 6 is M, N, and O. 6 is M, N, and O. All right, so jumping into get combinations, we'll see that the possible first characters for the phone number 46 are E, H, and I. We're not yet at our base case, so we pass, we don't enter this conditional here, and then we get to our recursive portion. All right, so for string combination of get combinations phone number, so phone number is still 46, which means we'll enter back into get combinations again, pass by the base case, since we're still at length 2. Ooh, I think we're gonna get stuck in some infinite recursion here. What I actually need to do is ignore the first character, since we've already covered that, and go from the first character or the 0th index, and go from the first index or the second digit all the way to the end. Awesome. Glad I found that.
Okay, thank you for finding and fixing that. What kind of unit test would you write if this were production code?
Well, let's see. Well, even though you told me not to worry about the input, I think I would still want to write a few methods that, you know, check for phone number of length 0, maybe some unexpected characters, basically anything to make sure that the input is as I expect. What else? So I'm concerned that writing a unit test for a string or for a phone number of length 7 is going to return a really, really massive result. So I would probably write some unit tests for phone numbers, for shorter phone numbers. Maybe 3 or 4 characters. Yeah, those would be some tests that I would write.
How do you generate this dictionary of expected outcomes, or even know that it's valid? I could see this generation being quite cumbersome if done manually, especially for numbers larger than a couple of digits.
Well, I think I should be able to manually verify it for 1 or 2 digits and just make sure that it looks like what I would expect it to look like. And then for tests for 3 or 4, or even 5 or more digits, how would I do that? I guess I could have a pretty good sense of what I would expect the length of the solution to be. I could use a mathematical formula to figure that out, where for an input of 4 and 6, for a 2-character input 4 and 6, since each of those have 3 letters associated with it, I would expect 3 times 3 results. And then for longer characters, I could just use that same mathematical formula, taking into account, of course, that there are a couple of special cases here where 0 has a space, 1 doesn't have anything, and then I think it's 7 and 9 each have 4 associated with them.
Great observation, and a great place for us to wrap up as we're at time. Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me today, Maren.
Thank you, Kareem. I really enjoyed working through this problem with you.
Well, there you have it. Hopefully you were able to catch all those steps throughout that interview demo. Just to recap the steps, they were listen and clarify, establish a function signature, state the brute force solution, improve the solution, implement the solution, and finally, test the solution. Well, that's a wrap for this video. Thanks so much for tuning in and best of luck in your upcoming technical interviews.